Excellencies, participants, ladies and gentlemen. And thank you very much for joining us for a very active dialogue on the sustainable lifestyles to address the plastics and packaging waste. And especially in the times of pandemic, we have seen a huge increase in the plastics and packaging waste. And that's where we are today very happy to also welcome our Goodwill ambassadors, Alex Randall and Antoine Pross, and then also our experts, Professor Harada from Japan and Dr. Tan from China, and then also my colleagues and my boss, Dr. Isabelle Lewis. So first of all, without further ado, I would like to invite Dr. Isabelle Lewis, Deputy Regional Director and Regional Representative for Asia Pacific Region for United Nations Environment Program, for the opening statement. Dr. Isabelle Lewis, floor is yours, please.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to join you today in this very interesting and topical dialogue. So welcome to the third dialogue and webinar on sustainable lifestyles for plastics and packaging waste management. This is part of UNEP's response to COVID-19. The third dialogue today will provide a platform to share and exchange on an issue that has been and continues to be an important issue to all of us, plastic pollution. First of all, I would like to welcome excellencies and participants from governments, UN agencies, UN country teams, and the civil society, including the private sector and advocacy groups, partners, and colleagues. I would also like to very much thank in advance today's panelist speakers, UNEP's Goodwill ambassadors, Ms. Antoinette Taus and Alex Randall, Dr. Kuan Yin Tan, and Professor Sadao Harada. I also highly appreciate the cooperation from UN country teams, UN ASCAP, UNIDO, UN Habitat, and UNEP colleagues in elevating the attention to this issue to the level it requires. Ladies and gentlemen, this online dialogue is focused on the Asia-Pacific region to raise awareness on the important challenges related to plastics and packaging waste during the COVID-19 pandemic. The pandemic is a crisis affecting every country and touching each and every one of us, and putting a cumulative strain on household, medical, and disaster waste management systems. And this is now apparent in many contexts, leading to critical failures in the systems of some countries. These failures have been triggered, for example, by increased volumes of plastic generated by personal protective equipment, including masks and gloves, the reduced capacity to collect, treat, and recycle waste due to lockdowns, the possible transmission of the virus through waste, and the lack of resilient supply chains. As we all know, even before the COVID-19 issue stepped up, the attention at global scale, and in particular in this region, was given to alarming amount of plastic waste and the intensity of its impacts. The fourth session of the UN Environment Assembly in 2019 adopted a resolution on marine plastic litter and microplastics, which highlighted the importance of a harmonized methodology to measure plastic flows and leakages along the value chain. We witnessed many actions from governments, the business sector, and the general public to collectively reduce the use of unnecessary and unrecyclable plastics and generate more public awareness on the same. However, national and urban governments, as well as the general public, are still facing important gaps in understanding the magnitude of the challenge and in the unavailability of tools to address the root causes of the problem. Now, plastic pollution is becoming even more challenging during the COVID-19 response due to the realities of combating the disease, ensuring health and safety in environments, as the pandemic is causing an increase of plastic waste in three forms. Firstly, plastic components, including packaging of sanitizer bottles, personal protective equipment, and masks, is a new stream of plastic waste. Secondly is packaging, due to an increase in online shopping. As an example, the plastic ban in India had just started to take off when the pandemic hit the country. The effort has been substantially derailed as the pandemic increased the need for online shopping packaging, and enforcement systems are looser during the pandemic. And thirdly, the increased use of food takeaway is adding millions of packing materials, including plastics, into waste streams. An example is Singapore, where 5.7 million residents generated an additional 1,334 tons of plastic waste from takeaway and delivery meals during the 2-month stay-home period. So during the pandemic, infected medical waste or personal protective equipment could be subject to uncontrolled dumping, adding to riverine and marine pollution. Already some 8 million tons of plastics enter our ocean every year, adding to the estimated 150 million tons already circulating in marine environments. And now the unmanaged additional plastic waste will only make the situation worse. So waste management is an issue in this pandemic period that will require more robust systems for waste segregation, collection, and management. There is still a need for guidance on how to safely dispose of used medical equipment. Even when waste management systems are in place, they should be upgraded to receive the increased quantities of solid waste presently generated due to COVID-19 response. And the breakdown of the collection system is the most worrying part of it, as plastic can leak into the rivers and oceans. Also worrying is the potential health impact on those who collect the waste and the potential of unauthorized recycling of masks. Sustainable lifestyles is also one important aspect to reduce plastic waste and to improve source segregation for recycling. Increased consumer awareness can also make a difference on environmentally sustainable lifestyle behaviors. They can contribute to reducing and ensuring proper waste management. So ladies and gentlemen, definitely we cannot compromise the need to be healthy and safe at a time of the pandemic and disasters forthcoming. But we also can make a choice to contribute to reducing the impact of plastic waste pollution. So today I'm delighted that we are able to discuss the range of solutions and strategies, starting from upstream, including lifestyles, to downstream, including recycling, creating resilient green supply chains, and how to respond to a pandemic and mainstream it as part of a new routine. So this dialogue provides an opportunity to hear from our speakers on their experiences and recommendations so we can still beat plastic pollution. As the pandemic continues to increase and recur in many parts of the world, what are some considerations to guide policymakers, businesses, and individuals to make a difference? We look forward to this very important dialogue and to hearing your valuable inputs and experiences along with the experienced panelists. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Isabelle. And so now, before we move to next part, and that's where I will introduce the dialogue itself and also introduce the sustainable lifestyles work from UNEP, focusing on plastics with my colleague Garrett. Before that, I would like to request all the participants, because you already even saw the faces, you are very familiar. You must be having many questions already in your mind, and while you are listening to all of them, you will be having more questions. So can you please start putting your questions in Q&A or in chat box? So my colleagues who are behind all these arrangements, Mayan and Kunparayo, they will be collecting all questions and bringing back to the Goodwill ambassadors and experts at the end of session for Q&A. So that's the announcement. So now let me start with a short presentation. Kunpi, if you can. Okay. So basically, as I mentioned, that our focus is how we can have a healthier and happier societies during the pandemic. And one of the key challenges is coming from the plastics and packaging during the pandemic. So let's discuss on that next. And so our agenda is basically, as I mentioned, initially I will introduce the dialogue and also the sustainable lifestyle efforts from the UNEP with my colleague Garrett. And then we have two experts, Dr. Tianjuan Tan from Tsinghua University in China, and he'll be discussing with us on the data and so on. And then we also have a Professor Sadao Harada, Osaka University of Commerce, Japan, and he will be also talking about the raising the awareness on plastics and packaging waste. And then we go into the very interactive session with all these familiar faces. You already know them. So Antroy Toss and Alexander Randall, and where our moderator is our colleague Tony Sri Sarpal Charek. And then we will have a quite interactive Q&A before we close this one. So please stay tuned with us. So next slide, please. So basically the background for this webinar is that United Nations Environment Program's Executive Director, she launched a response for the COVID-19. We titled it Working with the Environment to Protect People. So this is the one of the part of the response. Next slide. So there are 4 parts of the response. So under the first response, the medical and humanitarian emergency phase, the waste is becoming a major our focus point, where medical waste as well as the plastic and packaging waste is the key for us. And then we move to the next slide. So now here for today, as we are focusing on the plastic waste, and before we already had 2 webinars. One was on the overarching waste management, second one on the medical waste. So this is our third one, and where we are looking on the plastics. Now, as we already know that plastics were a major issue and still a major issue even before COVID. And that's where even our goodwill ambassador, Alexander Randall, has been working, supporting a lot. And so this issue remained there. Then on the top of that, there was another issue came. So with this issue, when we see this was 8.3 billion tons of plastic was being produced, and then we see so much of plastics getting to the marine environment. And though we have some statistics that 15% of recycling, but in reality, it's a 2% of recycling. And again, that got breakdown. Next. So this plastic, even in the before situations, was affecting so much of the marine life, biodiversity, life on the land, our food chains, even the flooding and in the drainage storms and everywhere. So plastics was already creating more disasters because of its unmanaged collection, recycling, and so on. Next. And then we also saw there was a alarming increase in the plastic, as we see now the masks, the gloves, the other PPEs are getting into the sea, into the rivers, in the land, in the trees, and so on. So this is on the top of the already the plastic challenge we had. Next. And then as we see that this plastic is now becoming a 40%, quite an increase. Packaging waste is becoming a 40%. As when I started waste management in UNEP in 2005, the food waste used to be on the top, and plastic was hardly 7%. So in 15 years, I could see there's a huge increase in the plastic waste. Next. So when we are looking on some of the status, the data is still keep coming, but in Thailand itself, we have seen the 15% increase in the plastics during the pandemic, as Dr. Isabelle was mentioning about the packaging, online orders, food packaging, and so on. And also the studies in Singapore shows that there's a huge increase in the plastics during this 2-month circular break period, which is a lockdown period in Singapore. Next. So when we saw this is the main sources, as we see the PPEs, personal protective equipment, that's gloves and the mask, and also the part of a lot of medical waste, the tubes and so on, and then also the online shopping, the food orders at the home and so on, and on the top also the fear, scarcity that plastics provide the safety. So there was over packaging of the plastics. Now, coming to the solution side, that UNEP is focusing on the, as I say, even before the COVID, UNEP was focusing on the circular economy models. So on the upstream, we were supporting to reduce the plastics, either plastic use or the plastic waste, like single-use plastics. So that means the plastics which can be reusable can be more in the economy than the single-use plastics. And downstream, we were focusing on the source segregation of the plastics to increase the recyclability or recovery rates. And for that, on the one hand, the production side, like eco-designs and types of the materials in that. On the other hand side, the lifestyles, the behavior changes, that how we can improve that either we adopt to the products which produce lesser products at the end of the day, or we adopt to the segregation practices which can increase the recyclability or reuse of the plastics downstream. And that was the main focus, that one of the key areas of the lifestyles projects in UNEP. Next. And so when we are looking on this priorities, that how this lifestyles can work, and it's not only about the community, it's not only about the consumers, but also it has to have being regulated by the governments, by the public sector, whether through the incentive mechanisms or disincentive mechanisms, or the awareness raising and so on. And also the private sector, like what goods are available in the market. So even if the people are willing to go for the sustainable lifestyles and there's no access to the goods which are useful for the sustainable lifestyles, how it can work. So with the private sector. So we work all together with all the actors to ensure that circular economy model works through the sustainable lifestyles. And now I would like to put a recorded presentation from my colleague Garrett. She is leading the UNEP Sustainable Lifestyles project. So Kunpi, can you please? So 5 minutes presentation from Garrett to introduce the UNEP Sustainable Lifestyles.
Good afternoon. I'm Garrett Clark. I'm the Sustainable Lifestyles Program Officer in UNEP's Economy Division. And it's a real honor and pleasure to be with you this afternoon for the Asia Pacific webinar on sustainable lifestyles, plastics, and packaging management. Allow me first to thank Ms. Detchen for her opening and framing comments, and Mr. Mushtaq for his comments as well as the invitation to be here with you. In addition, I'm really looking forward to hearing the interventions of the Goodwill ambassadors, Ms. Taus, Mr. Rendell, and the academic interventions of Dr. Tan and Professor Harada. Because the reality is, as the evidence evolves, we need to better engage cultural influencers as well as educators in order to activate people for sustainability. So with that, allow me to show you a few slides on the evidence behind what is sustainable living and lifestyles to set the context for today's webinar. First of all, the idea of sustainable living and lifestyles is not new. We have been hearing even before COVID how we can live better. The food that we're eating, how we're moving, the type of vacations we're taking, what we can study, what it is that's important to us in lives. We've been hearing about how we can live better and lighter. The challenge is when you look at what is the format, what is the structure of an overall lifestyle, and how can we take holistic action? And this slide presents the thinking of experts, global experts, including the One Planet Network, Sustainable Lifestyles and Education Programs Network of experts from around the world. So this infographic and set of comments highlights that people make their basic decisions to meet their needs and live their lifestyles. In essence, people don't wake up to think about how they can use less water or energy, or how they can find the least impactful way to get to work. They wake up, get something to eat, feed their kids, plan for school, go out and live their lives as they do. And these decisions are affected by social norms as well as the physical environment that they have. We know there's not one sustainable lifestyle. How people live more sustainably in Thailand is different from how people live more sustainably in Paris, as well as in other parts of the world. We know that people make basic decisions around food, mobility, living, and leisure. And leisure includes consumer goods, as well as how they entertain themselves through tourism. We know that income is not necessarily aligned with happiness and that aspirations affect everyone. Even those with very little aspire to have the same food, phone, and fashion that are seen throughout social media. We know a big action gap exists between having knowledge and doing something. Those of us in the sustainability field have become increasingly aware of this. People make decisions around price, availability, effectiveness, and other factors like culture, health, whether it's cool, whether it shows status, and maybe somewhere in there around sustainability. With COVID, we've seen more of a context around health and well-being, taken into account that there are also many who have increasing challenges even to meet their basic needs. So in essence, we know that people don't make decisions primarily with sustainability in mind. And this is important to take into account because people who may be at this webinar, we may be more likely to do that, but the average person does not. And people don't necessarily have the accessible, affordable, attractive, sustainable options, and hence the role of government and business and consortiums involving education and cultural influencers. The need is key to help make that a reality. The important to note also is that there are 2 to 3 billion new consumers coming online, and that there'll be urban youth who set today's consumption patterns and will be tomorrow's leaders in both private and public sector. And 90% get information from social media. So engaging through social media to activate change is key. I'm going to highlight one product that UNEP has developed to translate the evidence that's out there about sustainable living into actionable ways in which people and organizations that work with people can try and engage and create change. Highlighted here is the anatomy of action. It's got 5 fingers, 5 areas to work in, and they reflect the sustainable lifestyle domains. Food, stuff, move, money, and fun are already easier terms to access than others. In looking at under stuff, we find more the actions that are relevant to disposables, plastics, and packaging. And key in thinking about beyond buying is when you're thinking about procuring a good or service, really take a step back and think about what you need. And when you do procure or buy products and services, think about those that last longer, can be used multiple times, and can be used and kept in a circular economy as much as possible. Again, the key factor being taking a step back and recognizing the power of your decision. I'm going to spend a bit more time on the key elements around ditch disposals, which cover both plastics as well as packaging elements, highlighting that these 7 factors are probably not new to anyone on the webinar who's been involved in this area. What could be interesting to note is that under number 7, use your consumer power when you shop, eat, and work to voice the change you want. It highlights the importance of engaging with policy and business to have sustainable living the default options. On the bottom here, we have examples of the social media assets working through Instagram about how people can highlight and create a narrative about what they're doing to live more sustainably, a narrative that's more motivational and engaging so that we're able to identify and make actionable change. COVID has shown us that there are changes in the ways in which we're looking at the items that we procure or the stuff that we buy. We see new consumer habits. We see that people are more concerned about cleaning products and practices, and also around disposable waste and plastics. We see that there's an increasing concern around hygiene that's affecting the work that's been done on trying to reduce sustainability efforts in this area. So what can we do to make the efforts to make reducing packaging and plastics critical? One work that contributes to this is UNEP's work on developing the research and evidence analyzing plastic pollution campaigns that work and what are the effective elements of that. Recognizing again that just having awareness or knowledge doesn't necessarily translate into action. So the key elements are that the information must be accessible, relevant, and timely, and that motivation is critical beyond awareness, People need to feel that the issue is relevant to them and what they can do, and the opportunity so that they have the ability to select and make a decision and have an action to pick is critical. So we see that companies and governments working in coordination with others, including social influencers and academics, can help better activate the engagement of people in sustainability. So with these comments, I've offered some brief insights into sustainable living and lifestyles, noting that sustainable living is holistic and goes way beyond and covers all aspects of our lives, and that in doing it, we need to engage people with information that's accessible and motivational. And to highlight a few of the other elements we have here, we'd be delighted to share any of these at the end of the webinar or later, but I look forward now to hearing the interventions from the cultural influencers and academic interventions as well, because these are going to be critical to how we can better activate people for change. And so with that, I'd like to thank you so much for the opportunity to be with you this afternoon, and look forward to hearing any comments you might have and to hearing more of the interventions later today. Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you. So next. So basically, in the interest of time, I will just quickly mention that UNEP has done a lot of work and on the policy support on the sustainable lifestyles, and we have also the guidance, we have the awareness raising, and we are also supporting the startups. So next. So these guidelines are available online, but if you would like to have access and you cannot find, please feel free to come back to us. And there's a detailed guidelines for the private sector, for the governments, for the community on the sustainable lifestyles addressing plastics. Next. And so this is about the products, this is about the business models. Next. And this is also about the marketing and social media and so on. Next. And also this is about the government interventions through taxes, subsidies, pricing, and so on. Next. And also this is about the behavioral changing, like how the social context can be moved and through rewards and so on. Next. And now briefly, I will just mention that Bangkok office UNEP, we are supporting since 2018 the startups on the low carbon lifestyle challenge, and some of the startups are focusing on plastics. Next. And these are the current 9, where 3 are focusing on the plastics. Next. And also we have been engaged through the startups with the online consumer groups like Lazada and so on. Next. And also in the past, like startups in 18, we had a few on the plastics, and one who got very popular for awareness raising was with a person who was working with Food Panda. So I would like to take this last 2 minutes to show that video that created a lot of awareness on plastics. Please.
Food is a very communal thing for Thai people. We're always sharing dishes in the middle of the table. Actually, for Thai people, sometimes instead of saying, "How are you?" we would instead say, "Have you eaten?" Because Bangkok is so filled with food everywhere, it means that plastic is also everywhere. It's very sad to see that. I think it's quite contradictory. You know, you have this food that's very good for your body and it's delicious, it tastes good, but it comes in a toxic packaging. Being a food delivery service, we obviously give out a lot of packaging. I thought it would be a great idea to create a simple button for people to say that they don't need the cutlery. That helps the customer to reduce the plastic waste in their own homes. That also means less cost for the restaurant.
It
would be good if Food Panda could find us alternative choices because they're a big company, so they have negotiations power. Because the paper bag is quite expensive compared to the plastic one. The feedback of customers seeing us using the paper boxes and bags, they're really happy. Some customers even like bring their own box, like a lunch box for us. So it's like they come in like, you can put the food in here. So it's a good feedback. I think if you have an idea, you should always go for it, especially if it's about, saving the environment, helping the world become more green. So I think when you have a setback, you should just try to remember the end goal of what you're trying to achieve. And in this case, it's something that can really help you, your community, your country, your future children. So the end goal is a massive one. I hope that Bangkok can get rid of its bins piling, overflowing with plastic, that we can still enjoy good food that comes in packaging that doesn't ruin the environment. I'm Bonnie. I'm reducing plastic waste in food delivery.
Thank you. Next slide. Okay, so this is the last, but this is the important that I would like to request experts and also then our discussions that how we can improve the quality of life, win-win, maybe through nudging or through the consumer producer interactive platforms and so on, and like washable mask and so forth. So these discussion points will come through. And again, I will encourage you for putting your questions in chat box and also in a Q&A, because we may not have time to get the direct questions in Q&A. So now, without further delay, I would like to invite Dr. Kunyan Tan from Tsinghua University for his presentation, please. Dr. Tan, floor is yours.
Thank you. Hello. Hello. Mr. Maya.
Yes, I can hear you clearly. So
Yeah.
present.
So. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I think you use. Okay, it's fun. You use the wrong version.
Long version.
No. I mean the screen. I can see the two windows version. Okay, we can start here. I think we can start here. It's fun. So good morning and good afternoon, dear attendants. I'm Chen Tan from School of Environment, Tsinghua University. I really appreciate the invitation from the organizers, and I'm glad to briefly introduce the actions from China regard to addressing the plastic issue. Next, please. Presently, I think there is already a common sense about the significance of solving the plastic issue, and this figure is one of the projection works about the global plastic production. It shows that the amount of plastic production has reached 360 million tons in 2018, which is about 240 times as it was in 1950. So in 2018, China accounted about 30% of the global plastic production, with approximately 6% exported. So as one of the key producers and consumers, China had devoted a great deal of efforts to solving plastic pollution. Next, please. Regarding the life cycle approach to address plastic pollution, since the late 2007, China has already released guidelines to restrict the production and the sale to reduce the use of plastic carrier bags. And after that, China has gradually established a comprehensive system for addressing plastic pollution through its life cycle, namely from production, consumption, and to plastic waste generation, collection, recycle, and final disposal. And each link of this life cycle has its own specific measures and requirements to prevent and control pollution from waste plastics. And in addition, there are also comprehensive regulations and policies, of which there are two should be highlighted here. They are the law on the prevention and control of environment pollution caused by solid wastes and the guidelines on further streamlining the treatment of plastic pollution. In the first one, there are 4 new articles added in the 2020 revised law, which provides a high-level mandate to the government to develop detailed measures for the management of mentioned procedure and sectors. At the same time, the guidelines issued in January 2020 proposed a comprehensive action program framework on addressing plastic pollution issues. Next, please. In this slide, here presented are some key components in the revised law regarding the packaging issues. It defined the responsibility of the government, producers, and the traders, and it also has component about the residential awareness raising. And it also defined some key sectors that should be focused on to help the residential to formulate the more sustainable lifestyle. Next, please. Besides, it also pointed out measures and requirements on to the non-degradable plastic bags and other disposable plastic products, and to the single-use plastic products. So under this kind of requirements, different measures and stakeholders are newly included in this law for the first time in the revisions. Next, please. Regarding the new guidelines, it is jointly issued by the National Development and Reform Commission and the Ministry of Ecology and the Environment of China. Then there are also 2 supporting policies in April and January. They are aiming to solve the overuse of single-use plastic products and the mismanagement of plastic waste, which will significantly to reduce quantity of plastic waste into the water body and the marine environment. And the government had also set up many goals for the next 5 years, and such as to reduce the use and prohibit some production and consumption of some typical plastic products. Next, please. This video is a brief introduction to the previous guideline in 2007 and the new one in 2020 as previously mentioned, which could be summarized as life with less plastic. Next, please. So up to date, there are already 19 provinces and municipalities released their plans for public comments or have already issued their plans based on the NDRC guideline and their local industrial and residential situation. And the plan of other provinces and the municipalities are being developed as well. Next, please. So such as the Beijing's plan, which is developed by our group and in cooperation with consultation enterprise, is in the internal comments stage presently. The plan will employ a 1+1+N framework to coordinate the measures and efforts of different regulatory and municipal bureaus to achieve synergize. And one of the key objectives is to formulate residential green lifestyle with less plastic consumption. Next, please. In addition, China has also embedded the work on combating plastic pollution in the National Comprehensive Development Strategy, and namely the zero waste construction. And the plastic waste issue is also included in the goals and the indicators. Next, please. Last but not the least, China has been positively participate in international cooperation on capacity building. This slide shows a specific project under the cooperation between Norway and China. It's implemented by the Basel Convention Regional Center in China, which is located in Tsinghua University. And it aims to reduce plastic waste and also improve capacity to reduce marine plastic at a demonstration city level and to formulate residential green lifestyle as well. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Tan. So very great presentation, and it was also for us to know many things first time. So we will discuss in Q&A the questions on that. And now let me invite Professor Sadao Harada, my friend from Osaka University of Commerce, for insights. Professor Harada, floor is yours.
Okay. Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Today, I would like to share with you our experience on how to reduce plastic waste, which has increased due to this COVID pandemic. At first, I would like to briefly introduce our Kameoka city in Japan and the Kameoka Zero Plastic Waste Declaration. I live in Kameoka city, which is just next Kyoto city. The population is about 19,000. It is a typical suburban city with a mix of traditional rural and new residential area. So Kameoka is located about 18 kilometers upstream from the sea and is surrounded by mountains. So please remember that our city is not faced to the ocean. So it's an inland city. The Hose River runs through our city. This Hose River is one of the most famous sighting spots in Kyoto. The riverboat tour, which have a long history, over 400 years, and it's particularly popular with tourists. Unfortunately, even in the Hose River, plastic waste rapidly increasing since mid of 19th. After heavy rain, a lot of plastic waste drift to the riverbank, and it became a serious impact or damage on the tourist industry, such as this boat tour. So it was the boatman who first noticed the plastic waste problem in this river. In 2004, they started cleanup activities as their volunteer work. So plastic bags are the most common item in this river, and there are also many plastic bottles and food containers and packaging. So this is a common trend in many of Japan's rivers. In 2007, we established an environmental NGO with the boatmen and city officials. Today, river cleanup has become a city-wide effort. Well, in December 2018, our Kameoka city announced the Zero Plastic Waste Declaration. The goal of this declaration is single-use plastics to zero and 100% recycling all of waste by 2030. After declaration, we have had discussions with retail businesses and community associations as well. In this March, the City Council confirmed the plastic bag ban ordinance. This is Japan's first plastic bag ban. Then this corona pandemic happened. In this April, a state of emergency was declared by the national government, and de facto lockdown began. The situation is probably the same in many countries, but the impact on restaurants and cafes was particularly serious. Many restaurants and cafes have started selling takeout and delivery menus. However, household waste, especially plastic waste, has increased significantly. This graph shows the changes in the amount of household plastic waste generated in our city between last year and this year. The amount of plastic waste has increased by about 10%. In this kind of situation, one owner of a Chinese restaurant has started an interesting initiative. If you bring your own eco bags and your containers, you can get 30% discount. Seeing this effort, another bar owner made an interesting suggestion to the vice mayor via Facebook messengers like this. So he said he worried about the increasing the plastic waste. So he suggested to promote initiative to reduce plastic waste and raise people awareness with the symbol mark, zero plastic waste symbol mark. So, sorry, okay. Students and professional designers have been working together since last autumn to create this symbol, and it was just unveiled. When contacted by the vice mayor, the manager of City Environmental Policy Division devised new project in just one night, and he got the new budget only in 3 days. So this is a new project. We call it Zero Plastic Waste Coupon Campaign. Customers can get one sticker for each eco-friendly initiative, such as bringing their own eco bags or containers, or refusing plastic bags or single-use cutlery when ordering takeout or delivery menus at restaurants or cafes. This each one sticker can be used as a coupon for 10 Japanese yen. It's about 10 US cents. In other words, these coupons are discount coupon for students, but also as subsidies for restaurants and cafes. And the restaurant needs to commit to a voluntary effort to reduce plastic waste. And in addition, a message from the city is printed on the mount of the sticker, and the customer must sign on it when using this coupon. This campaign was widely reported on TVs and in the newspapers, and the response from the people was very positive. Particularly, the younger generation is interested in this campaign. So one young mother told me that their children asked her to go shopping. Do you have your eco bag with you every time? On this July 1st, the Japanese government has started charging for plastic bags. According to the Minister of Environment, the target for the rate of plastic bags decline is 60% at the end of this year. However, now the rate in this city is about 19%. And also, the amount of plastic waste generated by household has gradually decreased and is back to the same level as last year. In closing, I would like to share that we've always valued. It is a dialogue and practice based on scientific research with citizen participation. 10 years ago, when we began our cleanup efforts, we have started our project with 3 steps to solve this problem. The first step was to survey the river litter with community people using by WebGIS application. The second step is to visualize the data on the digital map and analyze the data. The third step is doing cleanup with community people. It's an important point. If this process was held only by researchers like us or government officials, I think probably we cannot reach our goal. Always, we have surveyed, planned, and executed with community people. This is a concept of entire our application or our system or our project. Then, based on the collected data, we discussed causes and countermeasures. People understand the actual environment of this river, our river, through this survey, and we started the cleanup activities. We could change people's mind. For example, in a small river in my neighborhood, in a section of only 500 meters along, a large amount of garbage was collected at the first cleanup. But now, today, these cleanup activities have been held 3 times in a year, and now the amount of garbage has been decreased significantly. Through these grassroots efforts, I believe that people have gradually developed their awareness of the rivers as our culture. This pandemic is not likely to end anytime soon. In this situation, a new concept of green recovery has been presented. We hope that our efforts to fight infectious disease and economic recovery while taking care of environment will be helpful. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Harada, whom I have known more as an activist in Kyoto. So if you visit Kyoto, please meet Professor Harada and enjoy the river's beauty there. So now, without further delay, I'm going to this interactive session with our goodwill ambassadors, Antoine Toss and Alex Rando, and Kuntani will be coordinating or moderating the session. But when I was advertising this webinar, especially with the young generation, like at Maidon University, AIT, Chula, they all got so excited. So I'm looking forward to that excitement from young participants. And please post your questions in the Q&A. We will try to reply, but if there's a lack of time, then we will come back to replies online after in 2-3 weeks time. So now over to Tani, floor is yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon from Bangkok, distinguished participants and my dear participants. I wish you and your families and friends are in good shape and start getting used to the new norm, which is basically could somehow become our new lifestyles. Whether it can be sustainable, we will find out in this session. Sustainable lifestyle is a main enabler to 10YFP, which is one of the global flagship frameworks to promote SCP, which stands for Sustainable Consumption and Production. It was adopted globally in June 2012 to affirm that the fundamental changes in the way societies produce and consume are indispensable for achieving global sustainable development. 10YFP aims at developing, replicating, scaling up SCP and resource efficiency initiatives at all levels, city, national, regional levels, decoupling environmental degradation and resources used from economic growth. So the framework will also encourage innovation, cooperation on wider scale among all stakeholders to achieve greater collective impact for the shift to SCP patterns. Having with me, and it's also my always great pleasure and honor to work with these two amazing people. Our two UNEP Goodwill Ambassadors from the Philippines and Thailand. The official announcement were made last year and this year to honor their dedication in helping us saving the planet and protecting the nature, especially in their own respective countries and to the region. Both of them have been public figures since they were very, very young, but they are real nature lovers forever, I hope. And they have been role models who inspire people, especially younger generations, as responsible citizens of the earth. This session, we will hear from them issues from their experience that are emerging from the COVID-19, the impacts to us and to the environment, practical solutions to the lifestyle that they have somehow go through that could be possible for some of us to take and adopt it, and they would become our own lifestyle. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I'm pleased to invite Ms. Antoinette Tao, UNEP Goodwill Ambassador from Philippines, and Mr. Alex Rando, UNEP Goodwill Ambassador from Thailand. Yay! So now the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Tani. Thank you very much. And good afternoon to everyone on our distinguished panel. Thank you so much for having us today. And to everyone out there, sending so much love and light to you all. And hello, Alex. It's so good to see you again for another good cause.
Yeah, definitely.
I guess today I'd really just like to share my experiences. And I always say that I never like to claim to be an expert actually at anything, because in life, there's always so much room to learn more and for more knowledge. But the one thing I firmly believe in is that we all have the power to create change in our own way. And I feel that that is something that I've carried with me strongly, together with our volunteers and everybody across the world that really tries to make an effort in their own way. You are all heroes, and we salute you. And when speaking of plastics, before I get into the whole talk about lifestyles, I'd really like to emphasize the fact, first and foremost, that 3 powerful aspects are needed in order to fix the plastic pollution challenge, or just in order to have a more sustainable future. And of course, this involves policy change on a local, national, and a regional level that emphasizes sustainable and green solutions, clean energy, and of course, a circular economy. But even bigger than that, it is so vital to create global agreements, not just for plastic pollution and waste management, but for our oceans and many other issues. Because without global agreements, if we're not able to move together, achievements in certain parts of the world sometimes become irrelevant or become negated by actions not taken in different parts of the world. So this is something that needs to be solidified so we can move forward together. And of course, importantly, we need business unusual. People and the planet before profit, finally. Really thinking that when we create or make or sell anything, we are trying to service a genuine need for humanity or the environment, and not simply thinking of the monetary gain behind it. And I always say, when I speak to the youth that are thinking of a future that they're deciding about, I always say, you know, think of all the great needs in the world, all the things that people are yearning for and asking for. Those are all opportunities to be the solution, to think of the solution, or to be a part of that solution. And with that comes the most important part as well, change from all of us. So whether it's on a national level, from governments across the world, the private sector, we also need change from every single one of us, because we have the power to create change. We have to change together, and we have to move together. I prepared a video that we're going to be pulling up in just a moment. And this is actually from one of our most recent coastal cleanups that we did this year. And this was right before the lockdowns in the Philippines. And this coastal cleanup is something that we've been doing for the past few years already. And sad to say, the place that we clean every single year as we go back, or every single week as we go back, the changes don't really seem that big. But the most powerful aspect of these coastal cleanups has really been the people that come together to help create change, because coastal cleanups will not solve the problem of plastic pollution. It's simply a fact that we have to get what's out there, take it from the oceans, take it from the environment, and do something with it. These things cannot end up at the landfills either, or in dump sites, because that's just the same thing. And incineration is also not an option for this either. So the solutions really have to come from communities, from governments, and from businesses. Now, as we do these coastal cleanups, the reaction from people is so strong, because when they look down and they see all this thick pile of trash that they are all picking up one by one, they realize that it's actually things that they use on a daily basis, items that we consume regularly. And these are the conversations that we've had, and they come up to us and they say, wow, I never really realized that there's that many little lollipop sticks in the world, or straws, or plastic bags, or plastic cups, or spoons and forks, lighters even, toothbrushes. The things that we find on the beach really are all from our homes. And when we think of it, this area here, right, actually is a Ramsar site. So it is a wetland of importance, and it is located right at the Manila Bay, which is at the edge of the city. And this area affects the entire city, and more so the people that live there. There are coastal communities that are affected by this pollution. And a lot of times, the people that live in these areas are very vulnerable to these things, because they are living in poverty. And this affects children's health. It affects the health of the entire family. And these are repercussions that escalate through and through. So when people see this, because sometimes at the coastal cleanup, surprisingly, it's really sad, we've actually seen children in the region, children in the area that actually even start helping us out. And this is heartbreaking because this is not their job. They should not be cleaning up the things that we put out there. And to top it off, this area as a wetland of importance is also frequented by migratory birds. So there are actually 41 migratory birds that have already been reported. And of course, during migration season, there's up to 5,000 individual birds that come here daily, including the endangered and endemic Philippine duck. So when we speak of these things, this affects the environment and animals, marine life, birds. I will leave Alex to talk about that a little bit more later because I know this is something he's very passionate about. And Alex actually has some powerful stories about this that I hope he will be sharing as well today. But just on the top of it, first and foremost, over 100,000 marine animals and over 1 million seabirds are killed every single year. And when we speak of microplastics, which is the little bits that either are manufactured in products or they just break apart into smaller and smaller pieces, those end up in our seafood. And today's studies have shown that this is found in everything from the air we breathe to the water we drink, from bottled water to tap water. And now one of the latest studies even show that it's been found in vegetables. So these are really alarming facts because we're just beginning to understand the effects of plastic pollution on the human body and aside from nature and the environment, given the fact that every single year we produce over 300 million tons of plastic. And the scariest and saddest part is 50% of that are the single-use disposables, the items that we only use once. On this specific day, if you see what we cleaned up, we were actually able to clear the area. We collected 4 tons of plastic pollution and almost all of it were single use, which is really, really alarming, but at the same time, it shows us that there is a solution because these are things that can be removed from the whole chain and can be removed from the cycle in the system, and it can be replaced with better solutions. And when we speak of volunteers, all these things, these realizations also come from the things that we remember, that these are things we use frequently. Now, when we talk about being responsible, we need to stop pointing fingers because I feel that it's been such a long conversation where people are saying it is the job of whatever it may be. And the truth is, even this area has waste workers working there every single day, sent by our government. But even the trash of the whole world, that cannot be cleaned by waste workers. That cannot be cleaned by coastal cleanups and by volunteers. It really has to be stopped at the source. When we speak of COVID-19, I actually have a photo that I'd like to share. Medical waste has become a huge issue during COVID-19. In the Philippines alone, 280 tons of medical waste has been produced per day since the start of the pandemic. And this is in Metro Manila alone. And when we talk about proper disposal, it's really scary to think because this also opens up the risk for open burning or uncontrolled incineration of masks. And this can lead to the release of toxins in the environment. And even more so for our waste workers, it can lead to secondary transmissions. Now, you're looking at a photo on the left, which was actually before COVID-19. So this photo is actually collected. This is a photo by Joey Mead King, and it was collected at a coastal cleanup that we had. And she ended up finding syringes. And aside from that, we found test tubes and other medical waste even before the pandemic. So this shows that these problems are actually not just new. They've been there and they're just being exacerbated by everything that's happening. Now, this other photo is a recent photo from a nonprofit organization that took these photos in the French Riviera. So it's really alarming to see that all around the world, this is happening. And these are things that we need to take notice of. In terms of handling medical waste, every country, every region, even local barangays, we call it in the Philippines, or local villages, have their policies as well. It's just important to take action to learn what are the protocols that the local government has implemented, checking the National Health Agency protocols for each country. And of course, the WHO, the World Health Organization, is always there to give us the facts, including, of course, UNEP as well, the United Nations Environment Program. And we need to make sure nowadays that when we try to look for solutions, we also carefully look at where we are getting the answers and solutions and facts from, because we need to spread the right message and we need to move forward in the right way. Now, in terms of speaking of changing And if we cannot give them the means to be able to afford better products and make better choices, then they are also stuck in the trap of having to buy the same things and consume the same things. So once again, solutions come from everywhere. But individually, we need to look at progress, not perfection. Because every day, even how I began wasn't complete elimination on day one. I learned little by little, step by step. When I started picking up trash from beaches, it was because I just loved the ocean and I would travel. And whenever I'm there, when I'd see trash, I couldn't stand the sight of it. I'm kind of a neat freak, so I pick up the trash. But at that point, I was still using straws because I had not educated myself yet on the facts. So don't stress yourself out thinking that it has to be perfect or you have to do it all. It all starts with baby steps. And when we speak of sustainability, it seems intimidating, the term, but really sustainability is simple. It really just means caring more, thinking of what we buy and thinking, okay, this item, how was this item made? How was it, where were the items procured, or where were they sourced? Who made it? Was it made in a just and proper way? So these are solutions that we can find if we start from us. Sustainability is basically buying less, wasting less, and consuming less. We start thinking, of course, circular and not linear. Now, an example of linear is basically using something, not really thinking of how it was really made, what materials were used to make it, using that, and not really caring what it's packaged in, and then when you're done with it, throwing it away. Circular is really quite simple. It's just looking at an item that was made from something sustainable, sourced from nature in the proper way, or made thinking, of course, of people and human welfare. Taking that, using it, and thinking of the packaging, of course. You can either avoid the packaging, recycle it, or this is something after that, when you send it to the recycling, this can even be turned into something else. And an example is what I'm wearing today. I actually am not usually too shiny all the time. I prefer simple, plain colors, and this is for more of a special occasion, but I wore it because this is actually made of recycled fishing nets. So these are ghost nets from the ocean. So this is an example of how circularity is also implemented and how businesses really have a big role in playing the part. And when we think of purchasing power, that is the power that you have. Here's the thing. Imagine every single day when you buy something, that is your hard-earned money that you worked so hard for. So let's give the money that we work so hard for to brands, to companies, and to people that really take into consideration the products that they make so that we can have a better future everywhere for everyone, not just in our own countries, not just in our local communities, because everything is interconnected. Remember, recycling is not as simple as it sounds, because recycling also takes energy. And when it comes to recycling, plastic is not infinitely recyclable. There is also basically, you can only either recycle it once, twice, thrice, or even not at all. But when it comes to things like aluminum, when it comes to glass, these are things that can be recycled over and over and over again. So the reusability is incredibly sustainable. And of course, we need to stay inspired. We need to stay inspired to keep making small changes every day. We've been seeing a lot of amazing effort from businesses, from communities, and even just from individuals and friends that message us and say, hey, look what I'm using, or look what I brought with me. I brought my tumbler just to make sure that I'm not going to be purchasing any plastic bottles when I travel, and things like that. Actually, one thing that I like bringing with me is this collapsible cup, and this has brought so much, it saved me so much. So when traveling, I never have to consume anything in a plastic cup, a plastic bottle, and even for food. I've brought home even somtam, papaya salad in this, leftovers. So these are things that have really come to great use. Bamboo straws, and truthfully, even when we're at home, when we order takeout and delivery, we can always say, I don't need reusables. I don't need disposable utensils. I don't need straws. Because first of all, when we drink at home, we rarely use straws to begin with. Actually, most people don't even have straws at home. But there are the reusable ones. Everybody has utensils. Everybody has their own containers as well. And when we think of community efforts, urban gardening projects are growing. And as we grow our own food, this also creates even more ways to avoid purchasing products that are packaged in plastic. When we look at businesses, In the Philippines, in a big way, roads have already been made using plastic waste. And in smaller ways, we're seeing small businesses create deposit schemes where you can, I know that this is actually done at the United Nations in Thailand. There's a deposit scheme there as well. And this is something that people can really engage in, farm to table. The relief operations we've been doing now to help hungry communities, it was really difficult to think because you want to help people, but helping people does not have to come at the cost of the planet. So we give relief goods in eco bags. We source fresh vegetables from farmers that are not able to sell their vegetables right now. And of course, this is not packaged in plastic because it's grown from the ground, but worse so, these vegetables have been decomposing, which causes methane emissions. So we're able to help their livelihood, we're able to avoid plastic, we're able to avoid methane emissions, and we're able to take this food and bring it to communities in need without any plastic. And I feel like these things, honestly, the solutions are everywhere. Rules in every country are different. The laws are different, the guidelines are different, the things that they allow are different, but what's the same is what we have in our hearts. So change comes from within us. So get creative, be inspired. Change starts from the heart, and we do it all for people and the planet. And right now, I'd like to turn you over to someone that is incredibly inspiring. He also loves to work with children. We do a lot of that work here, but he is really becoming a beacon of hope for the future. And he is someone that has used his platform to really take these lessons to the next level. And Alex, I just want to thank you for what you do and also for inspiring me. And take it away. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Antoinette. Now I'm very nervous. You spoke so well, so I'm like, how am I gonna?
You are
entertain?
No, you are amazing. I'm inspired by you. The last conversation we had, there were so many things that I learned from your work with children and the ocean.
Yeah, well, thank you. Well, I just like everyone just to have a little break, and maybe you could go up and get some coffee, some tea, or anything. Yeah, as you can see, this is what I take camping with me. I mean, I was just trying to look around and see what else can I share that's sustainable around me, because you have everything around you, your clothes and everything. So, but I have a watch, which is actually made by recycled fishing nets. So this is what I wear when I go. Whenever I work, I try to like tell stories about how we should surround ourselves with sustainable or eco-friendly products, and then every single day it seems like there's like a new innovation or a new product or a new sort of like piece of technology or anything that really promotes sustainable living, which before it was never like this. And and of course with the pandemic that's happened, with the coronavirus that's happened, like just before this, Thailand was going through a great time. Plastic bags were banned around the country. Plastic bags, like they wouldn't put them out for free in certain areas. The amount of plastic bags that were reduced per day was absolutely enormous. And then now we're stuck in a situation where when the pandemic hit us all, we're trying to be sustainable. Some situations has forced or has not allowed us to be as sustainable. Once we've been we've been pushing it, we've been running for it, we've been advocating for it for many years. An example is like when you go to the coffee shop, they don't accept private water bottles because they want to keep everything hygienic, and they and all that kind of stuff. And it's just a very difficult difficult timing for everyone. But anyways, I'm gonna just show my my PowerPoint. I have a couple photos. So this is yeah. So we could see this right here. Yeah. Okay. So let me just go back. So I'm just gonna talk just briefly about what I do and how I contribute to sustainable living, and maybe talk about a couple stories that I have just come across in the last couple of weeks, now that we are allowed to travel within the country in Thailand. So this is my job basically. This is an organization that I co-founded back in 2015. It's called the Environmental Education Center, or EEC Thailand. So what we do is pretty much we do educational camps for young children. And I personally think that, like, when we tell people what we do, it's usually more like about camps and this kind of that. But the people that actually come to our camps realize that all the lessons that we are trying to teach is about sustainable living. Like, an example of this is where we're not only allowing people to, or the younger generation, to understand more about elephants, but we're actually teaching them and letting them understand the importance of elephants that they have to our biodiversity. Like, for example, if elephants start to go extinct from the wild in Thailand, the geography will change, and in the end, humans will be affected by it. So in order to save elephant extinction is actually part of human survival. So we're not only saving elephants or looking after elephants because we love elephants. I mean, that's what I started. When I first started, that's what I thought. But actually, every animal, every species pretty much has its own objective, its own little mission in the ecosystem. And once we start to destroy them, or things start going extinct, in the end, it's humans that are being affected. So what we're really trying to teach them is for them to really understand that conservation is not only about just planting trees and understanding wild animals, but it's more about the sustainable side. Because the word sustainable, like what you were saying, Antoinette, it pretty much comes from two words, which is sustainable and ability, right? Having the ability to be able to sustain. And I liked your stories about how you do, like, coastal cleanups and all that, and all the activities and the initiatives that you're running over there. And it's so true. Like, it's a very difficult time right now, and it has been for marine debris, for everything around. But so what we're trying to let them understand is that if we were to take them underwater, if we were to go to study more about marine animals or wildlife or anything, it's more about educating them, or having the eco hearts for them to actually live sustainable. And of course, our decisions really make a difference, especially the people that come from people within the city. And one of the biggest challenges, of course, working in the world of conservation, is how do you answer the question, okay, what does it have to do with me? It's a very difficult link to be able to tell people that aren't interested in this field that the way that they live their lives is actually affecting everyone else around them. If not them, if not in the next 5 to 10 years, and of course it's going to start showing in the next 20 to 30 years. And like, we're starting with kids at very young ages, because we believe that these are the newer generations. These are their learning habits, their learning abilities are completely different to adults. So in order to let them understand and let them have that appreciation to nature, it gives them a sustainable lifestyle. Whatever they do, they change the people around them. We have cases where young children go home, their parents are doing big multinational, big businesses, or whatever it may be. They try to change certain areas in their parents' business, and of course, their parents, they listen to their children, So we're trying to, like, let them be the next generation of making changes. And of course, these corporates have massive powers in the sustainable side of our ecosystem. And this is a project that I'm currently doing right now. And it's as I said earlier, now we can travel around the country. And I was fortunate enough that I've been selected to travel around 10 provinces around Thailand post-COVID to see how things are. And one of the things that we really recognize is that the local people in the local areas are really affected by this pandemic. And you could see that like, the whole tourism side has completely gone in a country that's similar to the Philippines. Thailand is a country that is very heavily dependent on ecotourism, on tourism that has to do with, like, coming to our islands, to our beautiful islands, to our beautiful forests. So going down there to see the people in the local areas, it was a very, very weird sight to see very crowded areas that look completely empty. Nature at this point is probably the best timing to go and appreciate and see what we really have, because there's absolutely no people. It's a very weird sight. But it's quite sad that that, like as Kuntuni was saying earlier, how can we boost the economy? How can we bring the economy back up for people within the area? And it's a very sad side, like, because I'm also a diving instructor, like the whole diving industry, all the hotels that I've worked with, all the people down south of Thailand, they're going through a very, very tough time. Some people are in a situation where they probably will not recover from the situation. But as you can see that the local children, they are actually not too affected by it as far as they know. They're still having great lives because they wake up, they're at the ocean. I asked them, like, what do you do daily? Like, exactly, you wake up and you do what? They say they wake up, they have breakfast, they go to the ocean, they start collecting seashells because that's their dinner. Their parents can't really make any income right now, so they really pretty much have to eat what they could find, and they're fine with that because that's what they do normally. It is just maybe they're having a bit, there's lack of choice right now, but they're okay. And I asked them, like, how do you think that are your lives good? And they said they're great because they live by the ocean. But I'm just thinking that these are the people that live with the ocean. These are the people that actually live and breathe. They wake up, they see the ocean, and conservation is not only about protecting like the marine life, but it's also protecting the people within the area. With the marine debris problems that we have right now, with all the problems around the world, whether it's climate change, global warming, everything, the first group of people that will be affected are these children, for sure. And they don't see it right now. They don't quite understand it right now, but if we don't start to make a change and people don't start to live more in a more sustainable manner, the people within the area, and that's a big population down here in Thailand, and you could see like they're just such kind people. They're just such nice people. Like I was on a fishing boat. I was on a fishing boat and I came across this lady, and she was in a very stressful time. She couldn't, like, she was collecting, like, she's part of in the fisherman village. She couldn't sell anything. She couldn't help her kids. She didn't have much income. Like I said, like, they just have to pretty much eat off anything they could find. And then I offered to buy some of it for them, and then they said no. They're like, it's okay, you could just take it. And the innocence of the local people, the villages we have, of the fishermen we have. And it would be such a shame for me that people, if we don't start living sustainably, the population of these people are slowly going to increase. It's not like animal extinction anymore. It's like almost people extinction to me. That's how I see it. And this area that we see is actually similar to the area that you showed, Antoinette. Like, it's a wetland, and as you know, I am a big I have a big obsession with dugongs. This actually is the habitat of the dugongs area. It's actually seagrass areas, and the villages in that area are actually dependent on the population of sea cows. They actually believe that if sea cows go extinct, then they will not be able to, they will not be able to make a living. So they're very protective with the sea cows within the area, and it's just such an interesting story that if we start to take the sea cows out of the area, the whole ecosystem within the area is going to start declining, and in the end, like I said, like the local people are going to get affected. And for me, like I said, it's a very sensitive manner to help the local people, because they don't have the power to come up and speak. They're just living their life. They don't. The education levels in that area could be a little bit better, I would say. So they're finding it very difficult in this situation. And this photo was one thing that I found on the trip, is that there's actually more marine debris with no tourists. You would think that it's the other way around. You know what I mean? Like, I went to like 3 islands down south. I've never seen more trash on the beach as much as I saw on this trip, because everything is closed. There's no one helping them to look after. This was a cave. This was a cave that it's actually in a national park, which tourists actually come daily. And normally, as you could see, that I tricked 10, probably like maybe 10, 15 minutes before reaching the entrance of the cave. I went in, it was so exciting, it was so great. But at the very end of the cave, just where the ocean met, there was like huge piles of marine debris. And I was just like, whoa. So I asked the people, I asked the local ranger, like, so how do you deal with this? He said that, as you can see, there's a small hole at the very end. That's where the ocean is. What they have to do every single day is the local national park rangers have to come in by boat and take out the marine debris every single day. And if you actually look closer to the packaging of what you see, it's in so many different languages, meaning that it's not coming from the Thai people only. It's not only coming from the local areas. It's not coming from them at all, because there's no one there at the moment. But it's actually a problem. It really emphasized the fact that, yes, this is a national problem. This is a global problem, because every single day there's debris coming in from different countries, as we're in the Andaman Sea. I mean, the whole world is connected by one ocean, if we think about it, right? So especially now we're going into the rainy season. The storms are huge. There's so much debris being circulated around in different parts of the ocean. So it was a very interesting experience for me to actually see that. On the islands, you could see so much trash, so much marine debris. It's crazy. I've been to these islands before, and I've never actually. I mean, I knew the extent of the problem. Thailand have been working very hard to try and change this, but it all comes back to like I tried to help, like, do beach cleaning and stuff like that, but like, if we don't help educate the people, like you were saying, Antoinette, that you didn't self-educate yourself about the straw. So until you really educated yourself to really understand like what the problem actually is and where it comes from, and it comes from all these small little little things that we live our lives around. If we don't start changing those little things, everything is going to be affected in the end. So, I mean, I completely agree to promote sustainable living, but for me, it's really about the education side, and it's really about getting one to really understand, and to be able for them to understand, you have to be able to appreciate, and to appreciate it, it has to feel something. You have to feel for it. So that's what I'm doing at the moment. I'm really encouraging people, like, for the first time, I'm encouraging people to come out to actually see, because, you know, like conservation, tourism, there's actually a thin line. So during the trip, I'm just thinking, like, should I promote people to come? Because what if 100 people come and then you know, and it starts to ruin the ecosystem in the area? But at this certain time, I could see how the Thai population is really affected, especially people in these areas. So I'm really promoting like ecotourism for the first time. I never really promoted it in this sort of way, and it actually is a new world for me. Like, actually, ecotourism is very big here in Thailand. Pretty much everywhere you go, you could learn more about the environment. You could contribute. There's great projects, by local people, by nonprofit organizations, or even for-profit organizations. There's so many people that you could be a part of to promote sustainable living. And as we could see on Instagram, on social media, as we were talking about earlier, that it plays a big role in the younger generation, because, you know, they don't want to really go to class and have to learn about the environment. They want to see the cool side of it. And once they see the cool side of it, that's when they really appreciate it. And then that's when we can teach them, and that's when we could tell them to make a change. So yeah, I mean, I completely am for sustainable living, and you and myself, we're both like public figures in our countries, and we're lucky enough to be goodwill ambassadors for our country. So we have influence on the public, for sure. And one of our jobs is definitely to communicate to the public of all these different environmental manners that we have to make a change. And everyone's lifestyle contributes. Like, as we could see in this pandemic, if Thailand is a country that really wore masks. Like, we had pollution problems before the pandemic hit us, so we were already kind of in mass mode before that. So maybe that's one of the reasons that it didn't turn out as bad as other countries that we see on the news. So, but my point is that everyone wore a mask and everyone made a difference. That's why it's the same with marine debris. It's the same thing. If we could get everyone, we could influence as much people, younger generation, the generation that we're in, or the more senior generation, we could use our figure to influence that. I think that why shouldn't we do it? We're not doing it for ourselves. We're doing it for everyone else. And I actually believe that other celebrities, other actors, singers, there's a lot of people that are using their social media for marketing purposes, which I'm sure we do that we also have to do that, but some don't really understand how much power, maybe not power is not the right word, but how much impact, how much influence they could have with society. So on this specific program, that was in Kirby. I'm going to do that 4 more times. This time I got my celebrity friends, like maybe come on board and maybe like, use their fame to communicate to their audience as well, and they're there, and I'm telling that straight up to them. So I'm actually going on a flight right after this, so to do this project, we're going to talk about the importance of the river and see how the local people within the area are affected by this whole pandemic. It's very, very sad, but at the same time, there's a lot of positives. We have large authorities trying to make different changes. We're still waiting on certain rules and laws and things like that to change, and it's a great time for us to actually appreciate nature and like the Philippines, you have such a beautiful country, but very little. Like in Thailand, all these beautiful places are surrounded by tourists usually, but now the local people can actually use those areas and really appreciate it. And I think that's an extra. We could use this time to like motivate someone to actually love nature and want to protect it even more. So that's the mission that I'm on right now. And I really hope that after this pandemic, and if we could travel, I could come and join you one day. I am really, really looking forward to. Yeah, I see your projects on Instagram. I see what you do, and it's very inspiring. And yeah, I mean,
Thank you.
I don't know what else to make. I just or to say. So
Thank
I
you.
as hard as I can, and I see that the United Nations Environment Program are taking it very seriously. So we as the ambassador are going to do as much as we can to use this opportunity to make a bigger difference than what we've done before.
Alex, honestly, that was really amazing. And I wanted to touch really quickly on
you.
the points you made that were really interesting. First was really the fact that when it comes to tourism, we really need to look at that. And in the Philippines, it's actually quite inspiring because there already have been hotels and resorts and in places of high biodiversity that have decided to go plastic free or reduce their plastic. And that in itself comes from them, and it comes from the people that visit the area. The coastal cleanup that I showed you earlier, it's actually really amazing because all the volunteers that were there are actually from a hotel chain in the city by my friend Angie Mead King. And what they've done is they committed to helping clean the coast every single month, but they also made all their businesses plastic free. And this is how you see that change comes in waves, but then they grow and they grow and they grow. And honestly, when you said, once again, you mentioned children, they really are the reason why we do this. And that's why here also locally, we're pushing for more sustainability in education as well, because in one generation, we could change the world if they understand these things and if they learn from an early age. And the mask aspect. I know there's been a lot of conversation about masks and waste. And when I showed that photo earlier, I wasn't able to mention that in reality, one of the best ways we can help waste during COVID-19 is to use reusable masks if you are not a medical professional or if you are not heavily exposed. And you mentioned that Bangkok and Thailand actually, that you've actually been wearing masks since before. And when I saw that on the news recently, I was thinking to myself, this is probably why you did manage COVID-19 in such a wonderful or effective way, because it was something that was already accepted by the culture and the country. And so we see that there is really a huge effort that we need to make in really protecting each other, not just ourselves, by using reusable masks. And once again, Alex, social media, yes, social media can sometimes be called toxic, but everything that we have done since the beginning of what we've done in our nonprofit organization in Cora, a lot of it has been done through the power of social media. So it doesn't have to be negative, it doesn't have to be bad if we choose the accounts that we follow, accounts that also help to do more good for both people and the planet. And Alex, thank you again, because honestly, the inspiration, it really flows from you in many different ways, and we look forward to having you in the Philippines in the future to also help give the children of the Philippines an experience of biodiversity and marine life through your eyes.
I would love to. I would love that.
People will hate me, but we really need to stop you on the sake of time. And thank you for your time. I know Alex is on the way to the plane, and Antoinette, you have a lot of things on the plate. I will quickly summarize that. Thanks for highlighting the power of people to understand the products. That's very important. And tourism with responsibility. It doesn't have to be ecotourism. It doesn't have to be brand as if, but with responsibility, the way you go, where you can collect waste back to you to a proper place that they have recycling, that would be one. And thank you for pointing out a lot of good activity and initiative that you have started. And I'm sure people picked up, and we will have this session recorded, and people can rewatch and understand better how they can take up from you and expand into their own community. These are all good examples from us. And actually, we have a lot of questions lining up for you and the previous speakers, but I pick one for the sake of people to easily catching up. They ask if you can give us 3 keywords that can make people change their behavior.
So, well, the first one that popped into my mind that I really like to use is empathy. Empathy and really connecting to things, to people, not just people, but to all of creation. And remembering that when we hurt things in the environment, this also hurts the people that live in the region or that live far away but are affected by these actions. So empathy, being able to connect with issues even if it's not happening to us. That's really powerful, I think. Action, really being able to not just think of the things we want to do, but not being afraid to take action and begin, even if it's baby steps. And then, of course, inspiring others. Technically, it's bringing them on board on the same mission as you, so that you are not alone in what you are doing, because truly we are not alone. We're all in this together.
Okay, thank you. And Antoinette, you actually have done all what you have shared with us. Now, Alex, your turn. What would be the 3 key big words that can help people change?
The first one is responsible, or responsibility. I mean, that's very important in causing a sustainable lifestyle. Like, you have to understand it. You have to have the inner side of you telling yourself to be responsible, because you could throw trash when people are not looking. You know, you could do that if you wanted. But if you know that you're being responsible, you would not do that. So responsibility is one of them. Drive, I think drive is also a very important word. Like, you need drive. You need to actually have that drive to go forward and make the change, you know. Like, if there's no drive, it could be like a trend, and once it goes away, you kind of just go back to your own lifestyle. But if you have drive, and the third keyword I would say is belief. Like, if you don't believe that you're actually making a change, you're going to burn out one day, and you're going to slowly go back to your own lifestyle. But I have a belief. I honestly could say that I do believe that these kids that I work with are actually on a journey to make a change. I could see that. I believe that no matter how tired it is, it's not really how you do it, but it's more about why you do it, and why shows, you know, it drives you, it gets more responsible, and you know, and but you just have to believe it.
Okay, thank you very much. So we all believe in you, and we also get inspired by you. Next time, we hope we have you again. Thank you so much for your time. Now I'm handing the floor back to Mushtaq.
Thank you, Tani. And so, first of all, let me thank again our Goodwill ambassadors, Alex and Antoine, and also our expert, Harada Sensei, and also Dr. Tan. And we will put your questions to them, and whatever replies we can get, we will post them. And also, we will post the recorded video for that. But I also want to take this opportunity to invite all of you and also our Goodwill ambassadors for our maybe in 2 months' time, we will have on our startups. So basically, we will be looking on the social and environmental entrepreneurship, where we are promoting low carbon lifestyle challenge, the startups. So we will again be looking forward to bring you on board, and we hope you will accept our invitation again, despite of your very hectic time. So thank you, Professor Harada. Thank you, Dr. Tan. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Antoine. Thank you, Tani. Thank you, Isabelle. Thank you, Kunpi, Mayan, and thank you all the participants. So please stay safe, stay blessed. Thank you very much. Have a great evening.
Thank you.